Welcome everybody to On Nite, New York City. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you are all excited about getting back to normal, or sort of. On Nite is a monthly meetup organized by AR.org, a nonprofit with a mission to advance AR, to advance humanity. And we do it by bringing together the best of AR with the best of the AR community, which is you guys. Usually we highlight the most talked about AR use cases, the ones that are in the news and are kind of bringing the most revenue. But tonight, we're putting the spotlight on some of the cool AR use cases that you usually don't hear about, but you definitely should. So we'll try to make those use cases more known and hopefully have you use them. I think it's going to be awesome. My name is Ori Inbar. I'm the founder of AWE and Super Ventures, a fund dedicated to investing in early stage AR startups. And I have one question for you. Are you ready to get augmented?
Yes.
All right. By joining AWE or Nite, you actually join a global network of AR professionals that meet in over 20 cities around the world, from across the world. And since you are now part of this incredible community, let's get social. Our hashtag for today is OnNite New York City. Let's see if we can get a trend today. You may also want to follow us on Twitter for the latest news in AR and VR. And definitely check out our YouTube channel, the largest collection of videos about AR and VR, including meetup recordings like this one. And for the weekly digest of the latest news in AR and VR on Friday, right in your inbox, you may sign up for our weekly spatial newsletter. You know how we're all missing the good old days where we could meet at an in-person event? So AWE, we vowed to have a big comeback this November in Santa Clara, California. And I can't wait to see you all, not as holograms, but as humans in the same room. Submissions are now open and nominations for the Augie Awards are also open. So check out the website and let's get engaged in this community. You may know that AWE also offers workshops for XR professionals. And here are some of the upcoming workshops. We have an XR virtual collaboration workshop coming up in just 10 days, and also a web AR workshop for agencies and for creators that want to learn how to do it without any coding. So again, check out the website for more details. And now to the main event. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to have, each one of the presenters take the stage, tell about the product, show some slides, maybe some videos, and then we'll open it up for questions. You can ask the questions in the chat or jump into the video in person. I'll pick the questions and present them to the speakers. And then at the end, we'll leave some time for what we call member announcements. If you're working on a project, if you're looking to hire someone for a project and you want to mention it on the group, we'll give you a little bit of stage time if we have time remaining. All right. Are you all ready to meet our contestants today?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. So our first presentation is really kind of a topic that you don't think about when you think about AR, but after you hear this presentation, I think you'll all think again about how you explore crime. So to talk about this and present the product, give it up for the CEO and founder of Crime Door, Neil Mant. Give it up.
Thank you, Ori. It's great to be here. Really appreciate it. I have been working in Hollywood as a producer for the last 30 years. I've made movies and television shows. But since 2015, I've really just been exclusively focused in the immersive space. And I've been looking for something in the AR universe that would genuinely enhance the two-dimensional content. And the key thing about AR that makes it so great is it allows for that single word understanding. By being a couple of feet next to Pokemon, you understood your height compared to that character, and now you can unlock so much more from the television show. And true crime is the largest genre of content, far larger than sports. All newscasts are driven by true crime. If it bleeds, it leads. Television is dominated by true crime as well as crime. And the top 50 of the top 100 podcasts are all true crime content. I realized with my wife about 2 years ago now that there's no home base. There's no kind of ESPN for true crime. If you wanted to learn about George Floyd, you would search on Google and you would only see the trial. It's only with a great deal of digging would you get back and past and see the full story, as opposed to if you want to know about LeBron James, boom, you go right to ESPN and you get all your info. So we thought there was a great opportunity to build a definitive platform for true crime content. And then we could create AR portals where you could walk into the crime scene and we would base them off of the actual crime scene photos to ensure accuracy. This platform is really a reinvention of the news business. We're going to see LiDAR being used very soon to capture true crime events in real time. And then they'll be distributed through our platform as well as things like CNN and Fox News and more. So I'm going to show you a quick bit of content about this, and then we can talk about it afterwards. So we'll start off with the platform, and then you'll see the AR component.
Crime Door is built on an active map that identifies your geographic location and offers murders, missing persons, and mysterious death cases around you. Each case profile is hand curated by our team of journalists and researchers to ensure high quality content. Once a case has been selected, the user can explore all the media associated with that event. We don't just include one video from some local TV station. We add network content as well as regional newspapers and a volume of podcasts. We intentionally avoid conspiratorial websites. We only work with trusted news outlets who have a track record of producing content that meets our high standards of journalism. Cases range from ones that are currently active in the media to tragedies from the distant past worthy of a fresh set of eyes. We're really proud about the incredible tech platform that we created. However, it's the augmented reality content that we produce that is truly mind-melting and cutting edge. It allows for something
unique in a news story, the ability to understand it. You know what they say about understanding a guy? You gotta walk a mile in his shoes. The only way you could understand a story of history or of true crime would be to be there. You'd have to visit it. And that's what we created. It's the ability to open a doorway right in your living room and go back in time, literally a time machine. And so I'm gonna show an example right now, and it's the biggest murder of all time, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Now when I say that, you may get shocked. You may say, is that okay? There are billions of Christians around the world. There are so many people who have been impacted by the story of Jesus. Very few of them actually know what went down. What was the environment? What was Jesus actually looking at? What was in front of him? Now you're able to see it and experience it. This is an incredible teaching tool. I'll show you how it works right now. You simply access the Crime Door in the phone, and then you scan your environment. And just like that, there's a doorway into ancient Jerusalem. I'm able to walk right in or use this joystick functionality. It shows me the old walled city of Jerusalem, as well as the two bandits and Jesus Christ. The Roman soldier is there as well. This is an amazing moment in time that people are able to revisit.
That's the heads up on the app.
augmented reality is a thing.
And as I know that this crowd down here believes that AR is a really amazing tool, we think that this app is going to actually solve crimes, separate of being a new way of experiencing news. But by having all of the content at your fingertips, the videos, the articles, the photos, 911 calls, everything in one place, plus the ability to walk into doors and having other kinds of three-dimensional AR elements like doll houses, we think there's really an amazing opportunity to have as a teaching tool and to engage with the audience and service them in a content way that they've never been serviced before. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Actually, I would love for you to show the other crime where you can actually spot different clues and really understand kind of the scene. And, you know, when you shared it to me the other day, it felt like, you know, some of the true crime TV really come to life.
No problem. So let me screen share again. 1 second. So we're seeing the Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman case. I actually was the producer of this story or this entire trial for ABC News. And I can walk into it, or I can just use the joystick. It's designed in a way so people could just use it from their couch, or do a combo of walking. And so this is exactly as the scene was, and you can see actually how close Ronald Goldman is here to Nicole, and you can see all the evidence. And you may not have known how close these things were here. The glasses, which is the whole reason that Ronald came over there. The shoe print is there, the glove and the hat were all right in the spot. And there's other pieces of evidence, like you may not have known about the keys or the pager that was there. And so again, this sense of presence and ability to experience the crime is very unique, and we haven't seen anything like this in this space. And so we're really excited to be doing this, and we're looking for partners on the creative side and the content side, and any other way that people think that they could join up with us.
Awesome, Neil. Really fascinating. One of the coolest use cases I've seen this year. in AR. Here we have a couple of questions in the chat. First question is, if you share this app with law enforcement officers, seems like CSI investigators, prosecutors could actually take advantage of it somehow.
We have shared it. They all universally have said they believe this is going to solve crimes. There's obviously some crimes that law enforcement are sensitive as putting some of their information in there. They want to keep that separate in case they do find the killer. They know that only they would know that information. We expect to be using this in a walled-in garden for them to use as a white label, and they can fill it in confidence with all of their content. But we've already had one of our cases where we've created AR. I'm not able to say which one yet, but I'm told that the case is about to be reopened because of our efforts.
There's also a question about if there's a criteria for crime to be included in the app.
Well, as a case profile, it just has to be a crime. So if anyone knows of any crime of any kind, you could just email me or just email the app. We'll build a case profile. To build an actual door, we have to feel confident we can tell that story. And to date, we really want to use crime scene photos for that. Again, so we can get the sizing of the bodies, the positioning, everything, know we have the correct evidence. And so those are the two parameters we work off of.
Nice. And talk about some of the demographics. Who do you see using this app more than others?
So if I had shown up today and there was no ESPN and no Fox News no Police Report, no sports app in the world, and I said, "Hey folks, I made the sports app," everyone would flip out. But in this case, the audience is 80% female, and often that audience is marginalized, and so a lot of people don't really understand the impact of this. It's global in nature. A lot of the reason that women connect with it is, Ori, when you and I leave the bar at 10 o'clock at night, it's an entirely different experience. We just walk out, no big deal. Whereas every single woman has a different level of concern. And so this content resonates with them on a different level. And so we're excited to deliver the content to that audience that's very engaged.
Let's take last question for Neil. Are these CGI or video scenes? And what does it take to produce a crime scene for the app?
Sure. So we spent a lot of time and money in the app itself. So it's actually pretty simple to put a doorway in there. A person would just have to create a 3D model, which we do in Maya or 3D Max. And then they bake it in Unity. And then they just upload it to our server, and then it automatically turns into the AR component. So it's really not that complicated.
I mean, is it like a matter of hours, days, weeks?
Well, it's artistry. So, typically it takes a couple of weeks to get the faces correct. And we look for really quality artists to get that. However, as we look to do more dioramas and other overlays like evidence, that can be done, quickly, a day for some of that stuff.
Are you looking for artists to kind of help out?
Always. In our business, we sell the doors, and so we're open to revenue splits with people on that. And as you can imagine, if you're a podcaster or a television show, at the end of Dateline, they say to experience tonight's episode, go download the Crime Door, and that allows them to have an added piece of content that adds value to their show, and they own the underlying asset. So as immersive content becomes more common on the internet, they're going to have two pieces of library content that's going to support each other.
Perfect. Neil, thank you very much for this presentation. Fantastic job, and all the best for the app. Give it up for Neil.
Thank you.
All right, our next
Absolutely.
presenter is super relevant for New York City, and you'll know why in a second. She is on a mission to democratize urban development and allow people like us to actually be involved in the process. Super cool AR use case. Give it up for CEO and founder of In Situ, Donna Hermes.
Thank you, Ori. Thank you all for joining and for listening. I would just say that Ori was one of the first people that heard about In Situ when I just started to speak about it like a serious thing to build. I had the idea for years. Let me share my screen and present. Okay, so as Ori presented, In Situ is a Latin phrase that means in the original place. And our mission is AR-powered city planning. We're on the mission to democratize urban development through immersive experience in order to build inclusive, resilient cities through strong, engaged communities. We believe that cities like Jane Jacobs have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. Unfortunately, today, city planning is not for everybody, and not everybody has a clear path to participate. City planning processes usually skewed towards lobbyists and NIMBYism. The people that matter, the people that build these cities and are here and keeping them strong, do not really have a voice or, again, clear path to raise it. And projects are delayed or rejected. We use augmented reality, mobile augmented reality app to bring to just bring 3D building models into their urban context in the right scale on the right places, allowing designers, citizens, and elected representatives to see proposals, to see the future of the places they love, and to weigh in their opinion through our app. The exciting and most relevant thing to say about our business is that today, this morning, we launched our first pilot here in Manhattan, partnering with Manhattan Community Board 5 and PAU Studio, Practice for Architecture and Urbanism. Those of you who don't know, that's why I'm with this sticker on me. For those of you, sorry about that, who don't know, community boards are the official authority here in New York City to comment, approve, disapprove city planning proposals to their geographical boundaries. Community Board 5 are extremely important because they are Midtown West, and Madison Square Garden and Penn Station are part of it. We partner with them to assess a proposal to relocate Madison Square Garden. And as you can see here, the proposal is pretty massive. The community board members particularly concerned whether the new development could block the view to Empire State. And let's see here. So this is the app. Basically, it's a map view with projects to the city. If you are near them, you can generate the AR view. After a few seconds that we scan the environment, the new building just shows up. So the spoiler, as you see, is that yes, it does block the view to Empire State. This is a bit from today. What was exciting, we had plenty of people downloading the app. It's an app store, not yet Android, so sorry for the Android users, but you can download, and if you're here, come by, we'll be here, we'll be there all of this week. And the project will be live on our app for the next 6 weeks for the planners as well to check it out and assess the project. I can talk a lot about even just the learnings from today, but let's move on and wait for the questions. As a quick walkthrough through the app, so you saw the AR view. To every project, you have also a detail page. So this is not augmented reality, but it's another form of bringing the planning proposals to people's lives in a much more integrated fashion. So they have all the planning information, including timeline, milestones, and the commenting tool. So they can participate in city planning without the need to be available at a certain time, at a certain planning hearing, and with the ability to just walk around the new proposed street. I will stop here and thank you all. Welcome you to join me on site. It's Midtown, and it's even coming back to life as all the city now. So it's pretty exciting. And I'll stop for questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Donna. Super fascinating use case that actually, has an impact on everybody's life in the city, and hopefully you'll get to other cities soon. So, on one hand, it's been one of the earliest ideas that people thought about how to use AR for the purpose of urban planning. But up until now, I think first, technically, it wasn't possible. And two, nobody really found a good way to bring it to everybody so that really kind of can engage people in the process. So really kudos for doing this. I know it's been a passion of you for years, starting from nothing. So congratulations. When you first presented to me, you also presented how hard it is to influence the decision makers, and the process is so convoluted that, most people just gave up, right? So how do you think this will actually help in changing the way things work?
So first, I would say that COVID time made a shift in just how people perceive or how open both the public sector and the private sector are for this type of ideas. So GovTech is pretty much more open now to, okay, like we figure out that all of our problems are pretty major and technology could maybe solve them, and that the approach to solve them, I think, like the not only COVID but the elections and George Floyd and all the events of the past year made it clear that cities must be better for their citizens, and that more inclusive processes and decision-making processes are not only the right thing to do, it's or the just thing to do. It's also the smart thing to do in order to keep our cities strong. And to me, I stayed here. I'm in Brooklyn during all the pandemic. I gave birth a few weeks before COVID, so we had to stay here with a newborn. I saw, and as you figure out, I started working on Institute before that. I saw all the essential workers strolling around the city and just to make everyone's lives as convenient as possible. And I thought to myself that these are the people that never have got the chance to raise their voice, while the people who do come to all these planning hearings are the people who were first to leave the city as the pandemic hit. And I think today, like policymakers, when they come back to kind of bringing life back to normal, they are much more open to these types of solutions. And if 2 years ago, when I told people like augmented reality for city planning, they were like, nah, like from every side, like from the city planning side, it was what augmented reality does, has to do with it. From the augmented reality side, it was, whoa, city planning is boring. Now it's kind of like the discourse became much clearer. So I think we're at the right time, at the right place, and I hope to succeed.
Fantastic. Dana, there's a basic question on how does it really work? How do you actually detect the local position and place the building without a QR code or a marker?
So first, we do have a QR code. So the idea is that either through the city planning, their network, or through email, you download the app and you get to the project, but you can just randomly walk down the street. And instead of a planning notice that usually developers hide and put whatever at the side of the lot, we want to celebrate the urban change. So we encourage our clients to kind of do a big planning notice with a QR so random people can walk. And the experience that I imagine is as you walk down the street and see new construction, and you're like, wait, where did that come from? I've never heard about that. And it's too late when it's a construction site. So to me, it's like taking the process few stages earlier. You walk down the street and you either get notified if you register for this location. So our idea, and we just now launched the first version of the app, so we don't have it yet, but in the full version, the product will have an ability for the user to register for the places they care about, so they can get notified at any time for any new development that is being proposed. So you will either get notified, or you walk down the street and scan a QR code, or you're on a list of, I don't know, community or something. The way technologically wise, so we partner with amazing people. Some of them are here, and they know how thankful I am to them. I am still building the team, so all these partnerships are super valuable to me. And eventually, so today we still get the information from the architects or the developers or the planners, the 3D models. But for the next version, we will build a dashboard for the clients to manage their own content. So it will become a SaaS product for them.
Thank you, Dana. There's a question from Martin. Martin, you want to jump on video and ask a question?
Right. So I think that's an excellent application. Great job.
Thank you.
My question was like, is this kind of like allowing the citizens to participate in the planning, such as like, hey, there is a part in my neighborhood that is run down, and for you to be able to put ideas like in AR and kind of like present your thing and maybe even get your neighbor to go in on it because sometimes the city doesn't have a budget or time for it?
So definitely the mission of this app is to bring people to onboard them to the planning process. And I saw another question here before, how do people give feedback? So through the app, through the detail page, you have a comment button. The commenting tool hopefully will be equivalent to as if you came to a planning hearing in the official planning processes path and raised your voice. The community board that I work with right now, when she heard about In Situ, her first reaction was, okay, this should become mandatory to the planning process. And then we're like, okay, this is only a beta tool. Let's pick one project and pilot. And that's how the Madison Square Garden pilot came to life. But eventually, when we will be ready in terms of the product to become something that is equivalent to participation in planning hearing, is as simple as commenting through the app. And it gets straight to the planners or developers, depends on who runs that specific project. But definitely crowdsourcing the community's ideas are a big part of this business. And I think it's very valuable for the planners too, also for the real estate developers. I think when I started, I'm an architect in my background, so this idea came to life when I worked with the city and developers and residents. And most people that I spoke with at the beginning were like, developers will not want this, you will have to make them use it. But the more developers I speak with, I also find that they also care about this more progressive approach first. Even like, to be as cynic as possible, they are required by law to do community engagement. And today they do it pretty poorly and get mostly oppositions. So to do it in a better way, to get the community buy-in is something that de-risks and expedited their projects. But I must say that I feel kind of like a shift in their sector too, in the private sector, towards true transparency, more inclusive process, and true listening to the public. Because the data that you collect not always represent the community needs or all the different voices in the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Donna. We wish you best of luck with this app. You can consider us your army on the ground in New York City. We'll all be there to help you whenever you need us. All right, folks, now we're moving to something completely different once again. Next one is something that we all wanted to do. We wanted to do AR underwater, and that's what Paul Hill, the CEO and founder of Madtronics, is working on. So give it up for Paul.
So basically my idea started with my comic book. And so I wanted to create something that I had a passion for. And first it was the comic book, but my major love was water. I loved swimming as a child. And plenty of times I would go underwater and just stay there for just the longest time underwater and just imagine myself in another world. And so through that love, I created a headgear, AR headgear. And originally I was just going to make it for land-based applications. But like I said, my love for the water won me over. And so I just decided to try to figure out a way to take that passion underwater. So it's interactive. So you see the fish under the water, and if you try to touch them, then they'll react by swimming away. And so that's just one of the applications. You can go underwater, enjoy the fish. Another application is with the mermaid. You would go treasure hunting, and just try to get the mermaid's gold. And then after that, the next thing would be if you wanted to fight a shark in the pool. We think that's pretty fantastic and great. And so it's just so many things that you can do with this, whether it's in the water, under the water, or land-based. And so it's just a fun little product that we created.
So tell us about kind of how you actually made that headset that can actually go underwater.
What I did basically was I just looked at several products out there, and kind of brainstormed on how I would create my own. And from there, I just got a couple of ideas and just put them all together to this one product, and got with a friend of mine, and we fabricated the prototype, and got it to where it would actually just not leak. And from there, we just started working on some applications and things just to go with the headgear.
That's awesome. Thank you, man, for taking this challenge and making something really fun for all of us. Because I mean, I've been dreaming about this for a long time, whether it's for fun or even, you know, if you just want to swim and see some data about your stats, or, you know, how many laps have you done, or the time. I can think of so many uses for AR underwater.
It is. It's almost limitless. I mean, I created like 3 applications, and then a floodgate just opened, and I just started thinking of so many things to make.
Awesome. So any questions?
So when you were talking about being underwater, that's something I totally resonates with me. Like I still do have baths where I'll just like put my head underwater and just, it's just like very meditative, and I think would go really well with AR, just sort of the surrealness. But where do you think that comes from? What do you think is so appealing about being underwater? Because it's kind of counterintuitive, because it's kind of like drowning.
Well, you know what I mean, as a child, I don't know, I just would, because when you go underwater, you know, you're not hearing anything, you know, it's just it allows you to be to become peace with yourself, peaceful, and from there your mind just starts wandering, you know, and it's just such a beautiful thing, you know. It's almost it to me, it just feels like it takes me out of this world, and this takes me to any creative world that I want to create for myself. So, yeah.
How about using it in the bathroom, in the bathtub?
Well, actually, I do. I created an application for that as well, because that was probably one of the first ones that I created. But then I was thinking, no one's going to want to sit in their bathtub and play the game. So I was like, let's just take it to the swimming pool.
Nice. There's a couple of questions in the chat. One from Yanis about, you know, basically teaching how to swim. Like, you know, butterfly is a really complex thing that many people don't get right. So maybe that could help. Also, have you thought about creating swimming lessons in AR?
Yeah, so far as education, there's a ton of things you can do that's educational. Marine biology was one of the things that we thought of, and creating some stuff where you could actually go underwater and learn so much about marine life. Far as like teaching someone to swim, that's great, because, you know, you could actually be in the water watching, like, for example, maybe a model that's swimming, and your instructor could be an animated instructor that's, you know, giving you some advice on what to do and how to do it. And you would be in the water, so, you know, you can get more comfortable with what the lessons are and stuff like that. So it's just, it takes away some of trying to imagine. Instead of imagining, you can actually be there and doing it.
Paul, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us who love water, that, you know, you're a true entrepreneur. Just, you know, had an idea and you just did everything to make it work. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, now, once again, for something completely different. You know how in AR, we don't have a keyboard or a mouse, and we still need to interact. And hand gestures and gaze and voice, all these things, in some cases suck. So we have here CEO and founder of Litho, Nat Martin, which is trying to solve this problem for us. Give it up for Nat.
Okay, hello. So yes, I guess Litho started in 2017. I tried a HoloLens, and it was just the most magical experience ever. Just felt like sort of just incredibly delightful, like spine tingling, like kind of acid trip like experience. And just for me, it was so exciting because it solved, like, I think like a lot of people of my age, like I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with technology. Like it's so empowering, like for creativity and connecting with other people, but also kind of like just locks you in your room hunched over your phone. And I think AR like solved that. It like triangulated these two, the best thing about technology, and solves the worst things about it. And like from that moment, I was like, I was just completely sold on the AR big picture that I think most people here are sold on. And tried to build an app for the HoloLens, and it's impossible, or it's not impossible, but it was like really hard because like, well, the hand tracking on the original HoloLens was just bad. But even as it's better on version 2, and if like you were using a like Elite Motion mounted on an AR headset, you still have to have your hands up here, and that's totally impractical, like for a long-term future in AR where you're like using it on the bus, on the train. You couldn't imagine that happening. So I just sort of glued like an IMU, like a gyroscope and accelerometer to a 3D printed ring to try and create this app, and like wired it up to the HoloLens, and it made it so much easier to like create a meaningful experience. And just sort of ran from there, built out a bit of a kind of UX guidelines around how this could work, and made a video, and kind of we raised some money from that, and my school friend Charlie came on board to help with the hardware. And yeah, so we've been doing that for a few years, and this is the hardware. It's called a Litho controller, and the idea is, well, just to talk you through it, there's a trackpad on the underside, like on your MacBook, and then it knows where you're pointing, and it roughly knows where your hand is positioned relative to the headset. And the idea is that like it's not an obstacle to interacting with the real world. Like the big alternative to hand tracking is kind of like big controllers. But then what's the point in having like these, like if both hands are full, there's no point like having an AR experience because you can't interact with the real world. So like the idea of like the design of this is like you can drink your coffee, you can type on your keyboard, it's not an obstacle to that. And we kind of made the dev kit, developers liked it, but a dev kit's not a fantastic avenue, because I think if you're trying to, especially if you're trying to like put a new input device out into the world, you can't just go, here's the input device. It's like saying, here's a mouse, but like not providing the cursor or the start menu. And people just keep taking it in different directions, which aren't necessarily optimal. Like people kept wanting to use it in VR, but it doesn't make sense in VR. In VR, you might as well have like these really nice, big, fully tracked controllers because you don't need to use your hands. And so we wanted to create like a use case that really like showed it off as best as possible. And headsets are still a bit off, and mobile is incredible. The tracking's incredible, the rendering's incredible. And so we felt like mobile was like a place where for video, like content creation was like really mature, and like it makes no sense to create visual effects on your desktop if you can create them in the real world, like just in real time. So that's where Diorama came from. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, cool. So we'll just calibrate. So you can pull out objects. So if you look at my hand, I'm like using the trackpad to move it backwards and forward. We can like animate an object. And I'll just start following the path. Take it off the path, edit the path, like this. And the idea is when you've got a controller, you don't need to kind of walk around as much, and it gives you far more precision because you've got depth control at the same time as having like rotational control. So let me show you the sort of thing you could make with Diorama now. So we can bring in, I think like you can bring in a character. This guy was scanned in just using an iPhone LiDAR. And then we'll animate him. Close that. So draw him around, and they'll follow this round so we can then animate this thing, create a motion path. Woo. And we can put in something else, cosmic. Bring in a planet, animate that. And the planet will go around, and then can add a filter. Just filters really like help like flatten the digital and the physical, like the real stuff, and then you can record it. So record, and we go. And like when you stop the recording, all the kind of like UI stuff disappears, and you just have the kind of the AR scene you've created. So it's also got integrations into, or I had an integration to Google Poly until they killed Google Poly, and you can bring in text using your voice, just bringing in like 3D word art. And kind of the idea is that it will just replace like the After Effects workflow. So I think right now with the like kind of VFX creation, you have TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat doing incredible things, but very feature limited. And then you have kind of After Effects, Cinema 4D, like Maya, which are incredibly expensive and hard to use. And then I think you've got a lot of these kind of 19-year-old or like younger, like teenagers creating stuff, reaching their limits of like their creative expression on the social media apps, who aren't going to go spend £3,000 on a Cinema 4D license. And I think that's like a really interesting market for us to start, well, really what we're targeting. And then just like a quick update on like our company. So we've licensed / sold some of, well, we've licensed some and sold some of our hardware IP to this company called Arc, who we'll be working with to kind of help them really get the controller to its full like potential. I think hardware is an incredibly challenging business model, especially in a space that moves as quickly as AR, because it just massively increased the cost of iteration compared to software. But like Litho's primary focus will be on the filmmaking app Diorama, which we're going to have a touchscreen version out pretty soon. And we're really excited by that, because then just like everyone can try it. You don't need to buy a controller. And yeah, so that'll be coming out in the summer.
Awesome, Nat. I think we could hear the gasp on Zoom when you were showing how you use it, so elegantly and effortlessly. You're kind of paving the way to kind of using spatial interaction tools instead of the two-dimensional tools that we're used to on touchscreens and computers. So kudos for that. My first question is really around you mentioned a ring, and a few years back, we saw a few companies trying to create a ring for interaction in general, which seems like, a very common form factor. Why did you choose to do something different?
Yeah, so when it was just my student project, my master's project, it was a ring. And I think ultimately a ring is the ideal form factor, because it's just completely disappears when you're not using it. Before we raised any money, like me and Charlie, we made 4 3D printed prototypes, like with just like PCBs that he'd like made in his bedroom, and 4 different sizes. And we went, and like I went out to San Francisco to try and raise money, and not a single one of the rings fit an investor we were meeting. And a badly fitted ring is just completely useless because it doesn't work like a ring anymore. And then I met a couple of the ring company founders doing like fitness rings, and they were like, don't do rings. It's a terrible idea. You need to have 14 different sizes for rings to fit properly. So that's 14 different SKUs for manufacturing, like massively increase the cost. And then also it's really hard to just measure correctly. So it makes actually like selling them to people really hard, because what most companies do is they send out samples and then you send back the correct size. And I think we were being realistic that like people aren't wearing AR headsets today all the time. So we kind of like, it doesn't need to be completely invisible. And we were just kind of playing with shapes, and we had a shape sort of like this. And, like there were like 5 of us around the table with like very different finger sizes, and it fit all of us. And you do forget about it. It doesn't fall off. And it's basically a universal size, which I think is like completely ideal for like the stage that we're at. But I do think long-term, like ring and fingertip is probably what the big companies will put out with their headsets.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a question from Martin, whether you're kind of first targeting the film and virtual production markets.
We explored a lot of things, like gaming, the architecture stuff, like it's really interesting. I think AR is useful everywhere. I think really like it came down to sort of like a process of elimination. So gaming doesn't work very well. It's hard to make work well, because primarily if you're trying to get a big user base, it's still on mobile. People don't want to hold their phone up for ages and don't want to walk around for ages either. I mean, Pokemon Go sort of makes it work, but it's like kind of hardly a full-on AR experience most of the time. So I think like basically long-term gaming experiences and anything that requires you to be on your phone for a long time doesn't work in AR. But the good thing about filmmaking is people are already like going outside, holding their phone or their iPad up at concerts and like going out of their way to basically do an AR experience. So the behavior change there is much smaller for like existing consumers, and it's also very tied to the real world. Like visual effects are just like architecture or just like interior design are like completely like AR, like the most obvious AR use case. And also just like the rendering tech that like Apple have been putting out the last few years. It's incredible, like the quality of like visuals you can get. Like people don't know there's no app is pushing like the limits of like the graphics you can explore. It's very rare you see anything that pushes the limits. And when you do, it's just completely insane. Like the quality of visuals you can get. So, and also it has a viral component, which is helpful if you're trying to get growth. So yeah, that's why we ended up with filmmaking.
And with the new Snapchat spectacles, I guess initially it's not going to be available to the whole public, mostly for developers, but do you see kind of Litho as kind of a good pair with those glasses?
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, I do. I think we're thinking along similar lines, similar long-term vision. I think the real question for everyone in AR right now is like, I think we've cracked on I think lots of other companies have as well, but like we've got a bit of the future which is not fully resolved, and that's kind of useless. And what we're trying to do now is, because you're like, unless your company can like survive and have the resources to keep developing that till the full future is there, what's the point? And you've seen loads of great companies really struggle. And I think what we're trying to do now is just focus on like actually getting like people using an AR app every day, which is still something that like arguably doesn't exist. Like not on like a huge, on like a main, like on like a mass level. I mean, like Niantic are the one company pushing that.
Snapchat is kind of a walled garden, and they don't allow to kind of use Unity to port into Lens Studio. So that could be some limiting factor.
Yeah, that's annoying. No, that is really annoying. Lens Studio is incredible though. Better than Unity, but we built it in Unity.
All right, Nat, that was amazing.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and showing us this really cool product and the amazing possibilities you can create with it. So give it up. And folks, before we kind of conclude this, I know we started a bit later, so we're extending it beyond the hour, but let's just have a quick big thanks for our speakers today. Give it up for Neil Mann, CEO of Crime Door, Donna Hermes, founder and CEO of In Situ, Paul Hill, founder and CEO of Madtronics, and finally, Nat Martin, founder of Litho. Fantastic speakers. Thank you all for joining us today. I think we have time for maybe one or two announcements. Does anyone from the group wants to come up on the video and say something? Anything you're working on? Any project you're looking to hire some folks, to partner?
If there's anyone who knows about experience with like rigging, like character rigging and character animation with like some game development or visual effects background, please email us, because we're trying to hire someone for that, for diorama stuff. So yeah.
There's a request to put your contact information in the chat, folks, speakers. Cool. If you want to just put the email. In any case, we'll send this recording to everybody along with contact information for those who are interested to get contacted. And with that said, I want to thank you all for joining us. We've got some amazing, cool new use cases that maybe, again, people didn't talk about up until now, but I think we are going to change that. And these are going to be some of the coolest AR use cases out there. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next month.